This is kind of personal. This is, in '67, I was 19 and I went to New York to go to art school. And England was black and white then. It was the '60s, but it was still coming out of the '50s. It wasn't long since the Second World War. Rationing had finished. England was kind of dull and really, really white. And one or two black people, but mainly really, really white. And I got off the train in New York, the subway, and I was walking down the station, and I walked around a corner, and there's this poster, and it said, "You don't have to be Jewish." And where that was about, you know, in Europe, you didn't see the word Jewish written on walls. Not since the Second World War, you didn't. And suddenly, you don't have to be Jewish, and I'm thinking, Jesus, what's that? And it's a Chinese bloke laughing. You don't have to be Jewish, and it's to love Levy's. Levy's at the bottom, real Jewish rye. And I'm thinking, wow, they've called the bread Jewish rye. He's making a joke out of you don't have to be Jewish. They're enjoying. Then I went round the corner. You can press the next one for me. And there's this one, a little black kid saying you don't have to be Jewish to love Levy's. And he's taking the mickey out of, you know, he's using the word Jewish really open and not frightened about it at all. And you've got, instead of just white people on ads, all looking aspirational and David Ogilvy-ish and charming and white and madmen like crew cuts and blonde and ponytails and that, you've got a Chinese bloke and a black kid, and you put the next one up. Sorry, what? Oh, yeah. You got a red Indian, what they now call a Native American, up there, laughing and smiling. You don't have to be Jewish, and he's proud. And we still haven't seen a white bloke. You don't have to be Jewish to love Levy's. And I went round the next corner on the subway, and there's an Irish cop. You know, he's still not a WASP there, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and. Jesus, this is amazing. I've never seen this before. They're proud. They're not trying to pretend that everybody in advertising has to be white, has to be crew cut, has to have ponytails, has to have perfect teeth, has to be slim and handsome and good looking, and has to be Protestants and go to church. They're celebrating the fact that they've got all these different cultures, and they all get on and they all take the mickey out of each other and they all have fun. And they enjoy their differences instead of pretending they don't exist. And that made me fall in love with New York at that minute. And I thought, Jesus, London is really stuck in the past. This is the future. This is where we want to be. This is fusion. This is where big cities are. Never mind, and London and New York is saying, whatever little hick town you're from, wherever in America or anywhere else you're from, it's just a hick, old-fashioned, white 1950s town. This is new and this is the future. And for bread. And what I didn't know until later on, that was before I even started art school. This is on the way to art school. What I didn't know until later on, I was reading about this. What had happened was Bill Bernbach had got this little Jewish bakery in New York, in Brooklyn, and they made lots of different breads. And the one particular bread they made was a lot of packaged rye bread, but sales were down. And they went to see Bill Bernbach. He only had a little agency then. And Bill Bernbach said, yeah, well, of course sales are down. It's packaged rye bread. And they said, well, how does that sales down? And he said, well, rye bread is mainly immigrant bread. Jewish immigrants eat rye bread. And immigrants aren't going to buy it packaged. They're going to go to their local bakery where it's cooked fresh. What you're going to need is you're going to need to do market growth. You're going to need to sell packaged rye bread to non-Jews. What's your media? And they said, we're running it in the Jewish Chronicle, which because it's 80% Jewish readership. And he said, well, that's exactly wrong. You're appealing to Jews. Jews won't buy packaged rye bread. You've got to move this out of there. You've got to move it into the subway where everybody goes. And also what you've got to do is change the name of it from rye bread to real Jewish rye bread. You've got to start to be proud of what you are and to make everybody who isn't it feel like an outsider. And so he did that, and what happened was, to sales, what happened was it became the biggest selling rye bread in New York City, then the biggest selling rye bread in New York State, then the biggest selling rye bread in America. And now when you go to America, in any deli, you're automatically asked white, brown or rye or whatever, and you see signs outside saying pastrami, which is Italian, on New York-style rye bread. See, he launched an entire sector of real Jewish rye that became the, you know, they did share for rye and market growth for rye at the same time. But the thing that changed the world for me, that I really loved, was the pride in diversity. Suddenly they had launched, which you'd never seen before. This is New York, man. This isn't some small hick town. Everybody's different. Everybody's ethnically got their own ethnic culture, and we're one big melting pot, and we're huge. And you couldn't have done that later on campaign, I Love New York, without this. So this launched New York as the hottest, most vibrant town on the planet, and London wants to copy that, and suddenly everybody looks at New York and wants some of that ethnic diversity, that cultural melting potness, that excitement, and white went from being the ruling colour to just being beige and boring. This is now, and that's, I think, and that's a campaign that for me changed the world. That was Doyle Dane, done at the same time they did Avis, and what Doyle Dane also did was Volkswagen, and Doyle Dane was the campaign, was the agency that used to take, they revelled in taking a negative and turning it into a positive. Volkswagen, this crummy little pregnant roller skate of a car, eventually overturned Detroit. Avis, number 6 in rental cars, became to be joint number 1. Avis, that campaign, I was telling Nikki, that was also when I was at college in New York. Avis was running, and that was what you wouldn't know unless you hear about it. The We Try Harder campaign was so big that it turned into a problem, and the US government had to ask Avis. They did lots of little badges in Dayglow Pink and Dayglow Orange saying We Try Harder. But the problem was the GIs used to wear them on their hat in Vietnam. And the government had to ask Avis to make some camouflage buttons with We Try Harder. How great is that? You know, and this is Doyle Dane in the 60s. This is in the 60s, you were either Ogilvy or Bill Bernbach. And Ogilvy was making money, and Bill Bernbach was changing the world for the better. And Avis was one of those kind of campaigns. What you didn't ever say in America was anything but I'm number 1. And Avis said we're only number 2, and that makes us better. And what you also didn't ever say is that you're anything other than white and blonde and crew cut. And what this guy said, nah, here's something much cooler than that, white and blonde and crew cut. And that's why Doyle Dane changed the world. And if you don't know who Bill Bernbach is and you haven't studied Doyle Dane in the 60s, go back and look at all their stuff. That's, if you want to be in a business that changes the world for the better, this could be that, other than just a place to make money.